Hi, I'm Marika Timmers, and this is The Ethical Entrepreneur, a speaker series to inspire new and existing business owners and entrepreneurs to build more ethical and sustainable businesses. Today, I'm talking to Donald Nordeng, who is the CEO of BioGro New Zealand. And BioGro New Zealand is the largest organic certification company in the country. Today, Donald lives with his family in Wellington, New Zealand, but he was born in Madison, Wisconsin, and he has over 25 years experience working in New Zealand, Japan, and across Asia, helping high-value brands access foreign markets and achieve organic certification. Through working with hundreds of companies seeking to export, Donald has identified 6 key areas that businesses can use to refine and grow organically. Welcome, Donald.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. So I mentioned in your intro your 6 key areas to helping businesses grow organically. And no doubt through our conversation today, some of those are going to come out. But before we dive into them, I wanted to just take a look at the landscape first. Because in recent years, the popularity of organics has significantly increased, right?
Yes.
What do you think is driving up demand for this across the world, not just in New Zealand?
Well, I think we're in a special situation today with everything that's happened over the last 12 months. But aside from that, people are really focused on personal health, and also recently the environment. Now, I got into organics 25 years ago because I wanted to do something to help the environment. That was my pure thinking. And really, the organics movement has always been about, sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture. And finally, today, in 2021, we are seeing a lot of people talking about regenerative agriculture. We're talking about organic regenerative agriculture, and they're talking about agriculture with climate change. So I think there are really 2 things. There's the personal health, and obviously keeping yourself healthy is the easiest way to stay healthy. And the second is, people's concern for the wider environment, which I think is doubled or tripled recently. The organics growth has been actually quite steady between, each country is different, but between a 10 and 20% growth over the last 20 years. So it's just a straight increase, and it seems to be accelerating.
Yeah. And so I guess that the rise of the conscious consumer is bringing about that change, as well as consumers wanting to also create opportunities and businesses around sustainable practices too, right?
Yes.
That growth is great to hear, but I still understand that organics is still a relatively small market share compared to non-organics, though. Is that shifting? When do you think the 2 will meet and organics might actually take over?
Well, the thing is, here in New Zealand, it's much different than it is in other places. Very much what I've seen in for example, Japan or other places that have a similar type of, for either you've got a food culture or you've got a production culture. New Zealand is very much very close to the land. A lot of people have gardens where their parents were farmers, or they are farmers, or they've got an orchard somewhere, and they're very tied to food, and so they tend to not see a difference so much between organic and non-organic. Whereas if you're in Tokyo, living in the middle of Tokyo, you're so divorced from production, even trees, or even what is an orchard, or even the word orchard, that organic is really important, because if you don't eat really healthy food, you're not living in the healthiest of environments. Not to say that Tokyo isn't unhealthy. It's just compared to downtown Wellington, downtown Tokyo, you're going to get a lot cleaner air in downtown Wellington, partly because of the wind. But,
Yeah. And so do you think, are we prepared for growth? Is the world ready for sustainable farming and organic farming? What are the challenges we face as that demand continuously increases?
Well, there are quite a few challenges, actually. I think really getting investment, especially in New Zealand, there hasn't been too much investment in the actual research. And I'm talking primary research on soil function and the microorganisms that live in the soil, what their functions are. I mean, it's essentially an unknown world that's right below our feet. If we were able to use technology to understand what's happening in the soil when we plant a seed more than we do now, I'm sure that we would be able to transition much more rapidly. And really, it is about getting a toolkit to a producer. I mean, farmers are out there; they're doing the best, and they're doing what they know how to do, or what they've been taught how to do, or what they've learned how to do. And it's not to say that what they're doing today is wrong or mistaken. That's not the case at all. It's about improvement, and in any field, in any business, in any endeavor, constant improvement is how we grow and change. And we're faced with this monumental challenge with climate change and agriculture, which is actually the founder of culture. Right? Without agriculture, there is no human culture. There aren't big cities. There aren't the way we live today. So again, we're calling on agriculture to transform our communities and our culture.
Yeah. And so I guess there's an opportunity for one of the entrepreneurs listening, that there is a technology challenge that needs to be solved around understanding what makes up our soil and how we can improve that to be able to grow at the pace that we need to grow.
And also the toolkit. So how does a farmer transition from the practices that they have today to incorporate more regenerative practices, right, to get out to the other side? Because this transition period is really where production can go down, confidence can go down. The banker starts worrying, and the banker might not even back you on making a transition like that without this toolbox or this support system around you. That could be a whole community of people going through the same type of transformation. It could be external input suppliers that change their mindset. So organic appropriate or transitional appropriate or regenerative appropriate inputs, so that someone can make this jump from one type of farming to another, because it's really a different mindset. You're talking about in energy cycles, and that isn't what we're talking about today.
Right. So we've focused largely on food, but organics is much broader than that, right? What is the definition for you of organics?
Well, organics is really about what's grown. So the organic concept is really about how something is grown and can it be verified. So if you're growing organic kiwi fruit, you're going to be using a lot of compost versus using a lot of fertilizer. If you're growing organic wine, you're maybe using a different. You're also using a lot more compost versus soluble fertilizer. So these types of things, and also how you treat your sward, how you treat your buffer zones, how you incorporate water management in the system. These are all major differences between the two systems. So how do you handle bud break in organic kiwi fruit if you can't use the input that everyone's using? How do you manage different pest issues that you may not have a solution for? So all of those things, a person needs a toolkit. What can I use in this situation? What can I use in that situation? And that's where at BioGro we use an organic management plan that someone can fill out, and it helps them go through the process of thinking about what they're going to use in these different situations, and an online tool for people to apply for their inputs and get approved prior to use. And so it gets them thinking about, okay, what am I going to do in these situations? But then also the certification of it is going on the farm and validating whether or not they actually purchased those items and which they're using them and how they're using them.
Right.
Which is a major difference between non-organic, because you don't have someone telling you what you do, right? Essentially, you do what you think is the best, and you're not growing to a particular standard. You're growing to a production standard, which is how much can I make in a certain period of time.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked that is because in our audience, there will absolutely be people that are producing or manufacturing or selling food products, but also, skincare these days, the move towards organic skincare and other products too. And I guess my next question is really for them, as an entrepreneur who's looking to partner with organic producers, what should they be aware of when they're evaluating the quality of organic production?
Yeah, I thought that if you were going to get into the organic sector and get into, for example, health and body care, supplier relationships are probably the biggest thing to understand, because there's limited supply of ingredients, and the ingredients that are there may be variations in quality. So we're talking about natural products, and they tend to be less shelf stable, meaning they don't last very long because there's not a lot of preservatives in them. So your manufacturing cycles are much shorter. Your products going out need to be in good quality packaging, but also the packaging needs to be environmentally friendly at the same time. So there's this other challenge where you don't want to put out a certified organic product, say a face moisturizer, in packaging that can't be recycled, because your customer isn't going to want to buy that. And it doesn't make much sense to make an organic product in packaging that can't be recycled. So you'll find a lot of organic products in glass or in recycled, or products that have recycled content or that can be easily recycled.
Yeah, and I guess that comes back to the values of the organization and having that authenticity throughout. But what about when you're selecting suppliers of these raw products, raw ingredients? What are the things that you should look for in terms of selecting producers to work with, organic producers?
Well, there's the basics. The basics are, do they have organic certification, and then what are the standards that they're certified to? That's the first and most important factor. Not just if they say that they're organic, but that they are. And second, then, if you can, visiting the site of the manufacturing facility or the production, if you can. If you can't, to try and organize some kind of virtual meeting with them that way, so you get a sense of how they're running their organization, how are the people being managed, and then finally, obviously, the quality of the product is important for you, but also the volumes that they can produce and supply. So it may be that you have a really good supplier, they have a really good ethic, and they run their business very well, but they're very small. And so if you're a large manufacturer, that's going to be a huge challenge for you, because although they're a great supplier and you'd love to work with them, perhaps they're too small to make it work. So then you're going to have to evaluate whether or not you're going to put together a group of suppliers, which may be uncomfortable, but in fact, it may be the best option for you. So these are the types of situations that you run into if you're a big organization, say, and you've got a national brand or you've got an international brand, and you need constant supply. First of all, you need that supply always to be certified organic to the standard that you need. And second, the supplier needs to be consistent over time. Mm-hmm. And third, they need to be able to supply you when you need manufacturing. So long-term supply contracts are often the norm. So rather than you going and just placing an order whenever you feel like it, you need to work with suppliers to help them manage their business and forward load their business so that they can grow their business. So meaning that over a period of time, you estimate the amount of purchases that you're going to be making, and you sit down and talk with them and work out a purchase schedule. It's not a commitment, but it allows them then to scale their manufacturing and also to supply you and to make you a priority customer. And this is the common way that I've seen throughout the world in dealing with small suppliers. And it's also a way then to grow the whole supply chain.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of which, if there are any entrepreneurs or business owners in our audience who are looking to start their own organic farming practice, what does a quality certification process look like? What would that entail?
So one of the misnomers or maybe not misnomer is the wrong word. One of the misconceptions that a lot of people have is that the certifier does the work, and the certifier is actually just certifying an existing system. So if you're a manufacturer, you need to be able to supply to trace your product from the lot code, from the production lot code, back to all of the ingredients, and forward from the ingredients to the production lot code. If you're a farmer or an orchardist, you need to be able to know everything that went into your orchard or farm, when it was purchased, when it was used, and how much you have in inventory. Generally, how many cans, or how much tons, or whatever it is that you're dealing with. And also, you need to be able to trace your production forward. So what was sold, what wasn't sold, and where did it go? So those are the systems that you have to have in place. And a lot of that can be done right within your accounting software. If you've got MYOB or if you've got Xero, you can increase the knowledge that you have just by adding a little bit of information to these software packages, or any other software that you use. You can even use Excel for making tables for this. But this type of system then allows you to evaluate what's happening, and it makes it much easier for you to get organic certification, but also to get any other kind of certification, food safety certification, global GAP certification, or fair trade certification, and the list goes on. Even the local council certification for environmental management plans will be helped by having such a system.
So I'm hearing record keeping and organization is key.
Definitely.
Yeah. And in terms of those organic certifications, how do you evaluate which one you go with? Which one is right for you?
Well, personally, I think it depends on how where along in the pipeline you are in your conversion process. So if you're just starting out and you think, okay, I want to be organic, it's a 3-year conversion process. So maybe there's something that you can do in that 3 years time that can help you along the way. So it may be you get your food safety certification, but then perhaps you look at other standards that might get you there. So the BioGro standards are a private standard, and those are often used in small scale growers throughout New Zealand. And that's a good jumping off point to get into the export markets. So for example, if you're going to supply into the export market, say the US market, or the Canadian market, or the Japanese market, or the UK market, or any of those other markets, it's a good place to start. And then you can get into the system. You don't have a huge investment, but it also allows you to see where you're at and benchmark yourself against other growers.
Right. So we probably alluded to it throughout our conversation. Before I move on to our final question, I just wanted to ask, are you able to share those 6 key areas that you think will significantly help businesses grow organically?
Yes, of course. So in my experience, people, the people that you hire are the most important thing. Obviously, people focus on the quality of their products, but I think the quality of your people and how you treat them is the most important. The second is the quality of your products. And I mean, having a quality system is more important than the quality of the products. The third piece is really how you run your business and how that integrates back into dealing with your staff. How do you treat them, and how do you do your hiring? And the fourth is your community, and fifth is your environment. And all of these things tied together form your 5-step process.
Oh, it's a 5-step process. I'm sorry.
5 steps with 6 is the environment, tying everything together.
Got you. Okay. I love that, Donald. A lot of what I do is helping brands establish their values, because that's your differentiator. Nobody is going to have the same value set and offer exactly the same product suite with that combination of those values. So it sounds to me like those 5 or 6 steps are really tied to purpose and value, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So, final question, and this is a question that I like to ask a lot of our speakers. If you were embarking on a new business idea or looking to improve your existing business, given what you now know after 25 years in organics and across sustainability as a whole, what would be the top 3 things that you would prioritize?
Yeah, that's a big question. Well, I alluded to it earlier, but people, focusing on the people rather than the product. Second would be focus on the systems rather than the outcomes. So systems create outcomes, and making sure that the systems are simple and repeatable, and that the people understand what the systems are and that they're involved in creating the systems. I think those 2 things are the 2 most important. And the third is we have to remember that we live in the environment. We don't own the environment. So whatever we make, whatever we consume, whatever we buy has to fit. Is it necessary, and can it be made in a way has the most value with the least impact on the environment? So, looking at your packaging, looking at your marketing, looking at what you're using for ingredients, how do you treat your suppliers? You don't want to have a product that doesn't sell and then wastes a lot of resource because it's sitting on shelves and doesn't sell. You don't want to have a product that you make at a massive manufacturing facility, but it's so big that you waste 2/3 of your ingredients because you don't have enough ingredients to make a whole production run. There's all kinds of things that there's all kinds of waste that's built into the production system that could be improved, and a lot of that comes from forethought, but a lot of it also comes from just doing a considerable amount of work on how to minimize the different steps that go into both production and marketing.
Yeah. Very well said. I love those 3 priorities. Thank you. So that concludes our discussion today. Donald, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. I'm sure this conversation has given those of you in the audience heading down this route a lot of food for thought, literally. If you've got any questions for Donald, or you want to learn more about organics and their certification, you can go to www.donaldnordeng.com. I will put it down here. You are not going to want to miss the next couple of days. So I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.